I'm Jonathan Chapasopa from Burlington.
Go that way.
Sure. My name is Emmett Wood. I'm an assistant city attorney here at City Hall. I represent CETO and BCA and REIB and another handful of various departments.
My name is Tenzin Chokden. I'm the associate city clerk. And I'm just here shadowing Barbara today, NPA. So yeah.
Barbara Turnbull, your NPA coordinator. I'm Carol Livingston. I'm from Ward 1, the student committee. Amy Vilosky Branch, Ward 4, the New North End. I'm scared. Nora Aaron, she's her House, Ward 2, Karen Moody.
I'm Ward 1. I'm there with the A's.
And Charlie. And of course, Charlie. Okay, so why don't we start with the open meeting law review? And that's to you, Emmett.
Cool. I think I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna be because I think Barbara has my slides. So
Wherever you're comfortable.
well, yeah, I don't know if I want to be, I think I should probably be controlling the slides.
Oh, sure.
Just because there are some we gotta skip,
Okay, you might.
because they're not relevant to anything that NPAs do.
All right.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so we will switch. Beautiful. Okay, yes, I will slide this. Beautiful. Thank you, Tenzin. I appreciate it. Okay. So this slideshow was created as sort of a general bit of guidance by another assistant city attorney, Eric Ramakrishnan. I just want to give him full credit. His name is up there. He is our director of general governmental affairs and transactional affairs. It's a long title. Sometimes I forget all of the details, but he created this slideshow to kind of give some guidance on some of the items that are relevant to open meeting law. And some of these things are not applicable to NPAs, so there might be some skipping around, but I'll still tell you what the things are, just in case for some reason you have a question about those things. So an overview of the open meeting law is that this is the law that governs the business of the public. So it's to ensure that public bodies are open and accessible to members of the public, and that the information that y'all discuss is also open and accessible to the members of the public. So this slideshow sort of begins with a review of what a public body is. That's any board, commission, council that aids in the conduct of the people's business. So these are boards, councils, commissions of the state or any of the state's political subdivisions. And in the case of the NPAs, a resolution relating to the creation of NPAs was passed by City Council in 1992. At that time, NPAs were empowered to advise City Council and were also granted a budget as well as staff support. So when we're considering what a public body is, we sort of ask ourselves, does this body exercise policymaking authority? Was it delegated power by a governing body? Is it answerable to that governing body? And does it receive staff support? So in the case of NPAs, you're hitting quite a few of those sort of baseline requirements. Delegation of power by a governing body, answerable to a governing body, and receipt of staff support. Yeah. So now that we've sort of established what a public body is, we'll talk a little bit about what a meeting is, which seems like a very basic thing. But under open meeting law, it's not quite as basic. So a meeting is a gathering of a quorum of that public body to discuss business and take action. A quorum is more than half of the voting members of that public body. So for city council, a quorum is 7. And an interesting note is that even when we only had 11 city councilors, a quorum was still 7, and that's under the Secretary of State's guidance. So that's a piece of the law that is disputed somewhat, but the Secretary of State's guidance is that we maintain that quorum number no matter the members of the body at the time. It's the majority of your steering committee members, your voting, yeah.
I'll do it next time.
Okay, good. Awesome. I won't change anything. So what's a meeting not then? A meeting's not a communication for the purpose of scheduling or setting your agenda or just distributing general information. And any communication resulted in any of that written information just has to be available under the Public Records Act. So that's around sort of ensuring that we're using city emails to make sure that that's all available in our email archiver, things like that.
Assuming that we set them once a month for our meetings, that's not an open meeting situation.
Setting, yeah.
Decisions other than scheduling the agenda.
Purely logistical, you're not taking up the business of your public body. Yeah.
You don't have to publish those meetings.
Nothing like that. It's just about making sure that your emails are on the city emails so that it's available in our email archiver. So that if
Okay.
someone were to make a public records request about your NPA's agenda, that would be available to them.
Okay, so the agenda has to be but not the minutes from the agenda setting meeting.
So as long as when we go in your email, we can tell that that was all you did, that you set the agenda. Do you do it via email or do you have meetings to set
We
the
have
agenda?
meetings.
Okay, that's not an open meeting unless you discuss business of the public body. So as long as you're not discussing any business that you would normally discuss at a meeting
Okay,
in front of everyone else, you're fine.
okay,
But it's gotta stay like purely informational and logistical.
right, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But I guess we talk about an steering committee, it is setting the agenda, who's gonna come.
Yep.
Sometimes we review what happened at the last meeting, like if there was a controversial topic and we're trying to figure out how to facilitate better. Like we talk about a lot, like what becomes. I guess I'm not clear where that line is and maybe it's a little muddy.
And that's the thing about the law. Sometimes lines aren't as clear as we would like them to be.
Yeah.
Especially open meeting law. That's something Jonathan and I were just talking about before I started presenting, that there are a lot of gray areas.
Yeah.
And those areas are where we're presented with the most questions as assistant city attorneys or as city attorneys. And I'm always here to help with that and answer those questions. But it's sort of about, for me, it's kind of a gut feeling of like, oh, we would normally discuss this in front of everyone else. And I think go with that gut feeling. If you feel like, oh, this is something that, we would normally discuss with the group. It's something, even if it's something we've discussed with the group in the past, maybe that sets a precedent, this is something we discuss as a group. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, hey, I think facilitation went a little rocky last time. How can we talk about doing that better? But maybe not facilitation of specific discussions, if that makes sense. So what is in the meeting? No other business of the public body is discussed or, okay. So next we get into, sometimes a quorum will attend something together that is not a meeting. So for example, if you all attend a city council meeting, that's fine. You're allowed to be in a room together. It's just that, again, you're not discussing the business of the body that you're involved with while you're all in a room together. If you're at a city council meeting, you're at a city council meeting. If you're at a party or a dinner party, being careful as a quorum to not discuss any official business. So that's, a gathering of a quorum at a duly warned meeting of another public body is not relevant to this, as long as they're not discussing that business. So NPAs are not quasi-judicial, and as far as I know, they don't participate in any meetings that are governed by the APA, so this doesn't apply. And I don't think NPAs do any site inspections, but if that ever came up, glad to answer questions about it. I don't think you're doing that.
For those reasons anyways.
So what are the requirements, the basic requirements of a properly noticed open meeting? The posting of an agenda at least 48 hours in advance or 24 hours before a special meeting. So that has to be online, at a municipal office, and in at least 2 other designated locations. But if the meeting is an emergency meeting, none of those rules apply. So does that make sense to folks?
So the question is, where are the 2 other, so you got one notices in the clerk treasurer's office, outside their office. So what are the other 2?
It's up to the NPA. So I've seen like public signs like with a QR code that's like, come to our NPA meeting, and those are out on lawns.
Lawn signs?
And when I receive the agenda, I send it to the group of folks distributed throughout the city who post the agendas in their location. So I know they usually post it at the library. I think there's a location in the New North End, I'm not entirely sure. But so we take care of that requirement for you. Once you send me the agenda, if it's 48 hours in advance, you're good because I'll take care of the rest of the posting.
Awesome. So that's proper notice for a meeting. Now I will note, if you're adjourning a meeting that you'd like to continue as that same meeting, you can announce the time and place of the continuation prior to the adjournment of that meeting that you're having. If you don't do that, the continuation meeting needs to be warned as a separate meeting. So something that I was just discussing is adding items to the agenda. So this is an area where the law is a little bit gray. You know, we're told that we need to properly warn the agenda and let people know of any action items that might be taken 48 hours in advance. However, this 1 VSA 312 D3A states that at the beginning of a meeting, so long as it's the first item, the agenda can have additions made to it. So this is a piece of law that my office, that the Secretary of State's office, and that the Vermont League of Cities and Towns really, we interpret it conservatively, because the spirit of open meeting law is to make people aware of any action that might be taken at an open meeting. So this 312 D3A is a little bit against the spirit of the law. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to anything. My office, when asked about it, lets people know that it's all right to do so if it's an emergency. But if it's not an emergency, we would really avoid adding items to the agenda last minute, especially if it's a voting item. Because the whole purpose of the open meeting law is to make people aware of potential action that might be taken. So if this does come up for you, I've had folks reach out to my office about it. We will give you the advice that we would prefer that you not add things. But we're counsel, we give advice. If you choose to not follow that advice, then it may be that someone puts in a complaint, an open meeting law violation complaint. And from there, we would ask you, okay, do you believe that you violated the open meeting law? And if you don't, then we don't respond to the complaint, and that's it. We deny it. And we go from there. So it really is, we can counsel you, but we can't tell you what to do. But I would use your better judgment in these situations. The spirit of the law is that folks should be informed.
So, so in a meeting, warn the agenda, we have a discussion, it moves in another direction, very significant. That suggests needing to take a vote. We would then announce that for the next meeting or the next meeting.
Yeah, I would table it.
So we don't do it, obviously can't take any action at that time. Table it, pick it up.
Yep. Once it can be warned properly and folks know that you're anticipating taking a vote at that meeting. Because that's largely the purpose of why people show up at meetings. I mean, it's not lost on me that maybe we're missing some people today because there are no voting items. That's a big reason why folks show up. So
Yeah, can I just follow on that? So voting items have to be clearly documented as voting items in the agenda. Is that right?
that's best practice.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so folks know that a vote is going to be taken.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So we're talking about serial meetings here. And this is, again, just being really mindful, even on social media and through email. It's critical for members of steering committees. You all have responsibilities as members of steering committees to make sure that you're not discussing NPA business outside of just logistical details without a warning. So if that could be even be a social media comment, that could be a reply all to an email. Maybe one of you sends an email to set the agenda, and then another one of you replies all and asks a question. Well, that's a quorum. And that's an issue that we run into often, when folks forget to not reply all or to not include everyone in that.
So where does that? Let's say we have two identities, we're public citizens, interested, involved, engaged in various ways, and we're NPA members. Steering committee. Are we constrained from commenting in anything in a public, general way as a private individual?
Absolutely not. No, none of this should bear on your right of free speech as a public individual. So action minutes are required as a part of every open meeting, but that's the minimum that's required. So all that your minutes must require under open meeting law is a list of the members present, all active people that, so a list of your steering committee members, the public body present, all active participants in the meeting. So if anyone gets up and says something, that person should be recorded. All motions, proposals, resolutions, and the results of any votes on those. But you don't have to go in depth on every single conversation that was had or every point that was made. So executive sessions, I'm not sure how often they would come up for NPAs. But if for some reason you were discussing like a security issue or an emergency matter, I don't think you would be engaged in real estate negotiations. That would be a little strange. You'll need to make a motion to enter into an executive session, and I'm always available for any practical questions about that. Or, you know, if you think you might need to enter an executive session, we can talk about that. So hybrid meetings. This is about advisory bodies, which is irrelevant to you all because you're a non-advisory body. As I mentioned earlier, generally you don't adopt legislation, hold quasi-judicial hearings, or make tax or budget related decisions. So the NPAs are here to advise the city council, not necessarily make budget decisions or tax decisions or hold quasi-judicial hearings of any sort. So that's what makes you a non-advisory body. Or I'm sorry, an advisory body. Advisory body. So there are some examples there. A public body that doesn't have supervision over the legislative, quasi-judicial, tax, or budgetary matters. This is non-advisory. And this is irrelevant because advisory bodies can meet remotely completely at any time you want to. So non-advisory bodies have some other rules about having a specific set public location for their meetings. Advisory bodies are welcome to do their meetings completely remotely. I know that that's not really the spirit of the NPA meetings, but it is something that you're able to do. However, if a member of the public does request access to one of your, if you happen to be having a completely remote meeting, so long as the individual submits the request in writing at least 2 days before the meeting, and they do it each time they want this to happen, they can request that you do set an in-person location. I assume that y'all usually have an in-person location because that's part of the NPA meeting is sort of breaking bread and spending time together. But if for some reason you were holding a meeting completely remotely and someone requested that you have an in-person location, you would have an obligation to provide that in-person location unless there was like a real undue hardship or there's a local incident or a state of emergency happening. So it's a pretty high standard to not provide that location. And generally, if someone questioned that, if you said, no, we can't provide that location, it's our burden of proof to show why, if there was ever a legal matter around it.
Can I just ask, so obviously for convenience, the location is it just best practice if the location is within the ward? Specifically for NPAs, or can it be anywhere within the municipality?
My understanding is unless your bylaws say something else, they can be anywhere. If you wanted to pass a bylaw that said, you know, we want NPA meetings for this ward to only be in this ward, I think that's one thing. So this just talks a little bit about an undue hardship if you were to reject that request. And that's something that we could talk further about if there was for some reason someone had put in a request and you didn't think you could provide an in-person location. And that's about it. that's what I've got for open meeting law. So if anyone has any last questions for me, I'm glad to answer them.
Could you just send out this slide to the steering committees? Thank you.
Yes, we can make that happen, I think. You have the
Yeah, I'll put that on Civic Clerk.
perfect.
I have a question too, and maybe we'll address this later. Can we ever ask someone to leave an NPA meeting? Does that go against the open meeting violation if someone's becoming aggressive or?
So
Are
I
they
think like
angry?
Robert's rules
Mhm.
and the city council, how the city council operates is that they stop the meeting. They just shut down the meeting completely. Because you're providing a public forum, so we can't be sort of picking and choosing when someone can speak in that public forum. But the city council rules are to shut down the meeting completely. Now, you could have your own NPA rules in your bylaws for how you want to deal with that. But it is making sure that it's in line with open meeting law and with Robert's rules, I think is best practice. And again, I'm happy to work on that with folks if that's something that you'd like to include in your bylaws. Thanks.
So if there's nothing in the bylaws about that, what happens?
If there's nothing in the bylaws about that, I would be more concerned because it's just a completely open public forum. It's not a limited public forum in any way. So people haven't been made aware of any rules. And so then it could be that, you know, it could be construed as discriminatory in some way because we're targeting certain individuals and there's no rules that they know to abide by.
So the default is we shut the meeting down unless we create bylaws in our specific NPA to do something different than that.
Yeah, I would say that you can shut the meeting down, but you can't kick anybody out. You can say we're adjourning for now. It's become unruly. And then when you pick it back up, the person has the right to keep talking, which is what happens at city council. Right. It's sort of a cooling off period is what you're entitled to.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the case that somebody misses the 48-hour deadline for a normal meeting, are you allowed to call it a special meeting? Or it violates the spirit of the law, but is that allowed?
It violates the spirit of the law. Is anyone going to track you down and find out if it's actually a special meeting? I don't know. You know, I think it depends. It's one of those areas where like, it's not gray because if you know that what you're doing is calling a special meeting because you forgot to post the agenda, then it probably shouldn't be done. Right.
Yeah.
Generally, if someone asks for the reasoning as to why there's a special meeting, there should be solid reasoning just because we are sort of circumventing those normal rules of notice.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, question for you about what happens if there is a violation?
Yeah.
What happens? What's the process? What do we need to preserve as evidence? What's it mean to us?
Yeah, so when someone submits an open meeting law complaint, generally my office will review it and get in touch with the individuals who are implicated. So we essentially just ask you, do you think you violated open meeting law here? And if you say no, we tell them no. And if you say yes, then we need to cure it. There's a cure period for fixing this.
Sure, going forward.
There's a specific cure period, which I can tell
There's
you.
nothing punitive.
Well, if you deny and they say, well, I still think that you have violated open meeting law, they could sue us under that contention. So
How do you define?
if you deny your open meeting law violation following expiration of following an acknowledgement or denial of a violation, and if applicable, following expiration of the 14-day cure period for public bodies acknowledging a violation, the Attorney General or any person aggrieved by the violation may bring a civil action in Superior Court.
And is that personal to me if I'm the one who was found?
You may be individually liable, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. If I violated open meeting law, I would be individually liable. So
You're an employee of the city, aren't you?
I am an employee of the city.
So the city's insurance does not cover employees?
It
Only-
does, but I could still be, under the marine theory of litigation, I could still be sued.
Okay, independently of the city?
Yeah. Because that's how people sue people. I mean, generally, they try to sue everybody they possibly can.
God bless America.
Yep. But you do get a 14-day period to acknowledge or deny or whatever you think. And then there's another period of time in which you may cure the violation. And then if you don't cure the violation within that period of time, it's then considered a denial.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Anything else? We'll end on that happy, snappy note.
Sorry.
Okay, no, if I can answer any other questions for folks, I'm sure Barbara will help facilitate that. And I'm always around. I represent the NPAs in a legal capacity, so if there's ever any questions, I know Jonathan, you've met with me in my office before. Always glad to be here for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you so much.
Thank you for letting me use your computer, Barbara. I appreciate it. Very good to meet you.
Finally.
It's been a minute. You've been here for a while now. Good to see you, Tenzin.
Okay, moving on to the NPA Resolution Implementation, which is a discussion, and we won't be voting on it. I think, so does everybody have a copy? Barbara, did you pass those around, or
Is it attached to these?
everybody's got one, right?
Yeah. It's attached to our packet, right? Oh.
Oh, I see that.
Sorry it took a long time to get here. Missed the introductions.
Should we go over them? Or do you want to introduce?
Introduce myself.
Sure.
Charlie Messing, Ward 3. I live 2 blocks from here. I come from Brooklyn. Old. Like Trump. Same age as Trump. Anyway, I thought it was at the library. First I thought it was here, then I thought it was at the library, then it was, and I was getting cross emails from another group changing the meetings around. So my apologies for being late.
It's good to see you here.
Thank you.
And I think we would have had it at the library had there been a room available, because it's a little more intimate than this place. For the NPA Resolution Implementation, what I thought we could do is kind of go through those things that the NPAs are responsible for, make sure we feel comfortable that from our standpoint, they're doable, and then also from Barbara's standpoint of the DFA in general, that there are paths to getting these things done. So it's really, there's only a couple that really matter, but I thought I'd step through all of the resolve clauses just to make sure everybody can smile and nod and say, yep, we can, we can do that. Like the NPA shall be open and accessible to all city residents and shall abide by open meeting law. Is there anybody who thinks that's a problem? The NPA shall adhere to federal, state, and local laws regarding anti-discrimination, free speech, and accessibility. The NPA shall adhere to the provisions of their bylaws, and decisions shall be made in a transparent manner. The NPA shall expend funds allocated to them by the city council in a manner consistent with the city's terms, conditions, and restrictions, and those have just been updated and clarified. So I think we can all feel pretty good that we understand and know what we can do and we can't do. And you're available, Barbara, of course, for clarification. So the NPA shall set the terms and conditions for the gathering and shall determine their agendas and priorities. So all those I think are pretty straightforward. And then we come to the next one, which is that CEDO or the DFA charged with supporting the NPA shall develop a standardized process in collaboration with the NPAs by which each NPA can communicate a list of annual priorities to the city council and city administration. This is to make sure that our elected leaders know the things that matter most to us, ward by ward, and gives notice that if this stuff comes up at city council or in decision making, we'd like those issues to be presented to the NPA. That NPA should be part of the advisory group that actually has something to say about it. So the question is, how do we do this? And we actually had just a little conversation in Ward 1 about this. I think we've talked about having it on the agenda after the new city council is sworn in. So it would be either a March or an April meeting. And as a group, the NPA would kind of define the top three, the three most important things that we want to make sure are available. But that's just, it's very vague. And it's important that Barbara or our DFA representative can manage collecting all that and making sure that everybody who needs to know about it knows about it. So I think we can open for discussion as to how people think this should be done. What do we want, and then what can you provide?
Jonathan, I'm not clear on whether presenting a list to the city council is something the NPAs prior to that collaborate and agree on a list of, say, 3, priorities, or whether we do that individually at each NPA.
Each NPA gets to select their most important priorities. So that which one NPA, it's really a focus for their city councilors. So the city councilors should be made aware of the stuff that matters most, so that at least they can put up a kind of a wall, a time wall. They could slow down a process if they know it's important for their NPAs to some decision making that the city's doing. So it is NPA by NPA. And I think that's where it gets a little bit convoluted. It gets a little, tight for managing.
Yeah. And it may be that we might have some conversations among ourselves prior to submitting individually our individual priorities to identify overlap or very strong citywide issues. Should we have some coordinated component here, meaning among all the NPAs, mindful that we're submitting individually, but I'm just wondering whether it wouldn't be a good idea to collectively come up with, or at least consult with one another and identify overlap or disjunctures of various kinds. Maybe that's not.
So what would be the purpose, Tom? Why do you think that's an important?
Well, I think, first of all, I think that my guess is that there are probably some issues that will come up ward by ward that would be sort of in common. Mm-hmm. And I think that giving the city council some focus might be important, rather than flooding them with 8 wards, each having their own priorities. My guess is that there's going to be some overlap. There's going to be some commonality ward to ward, as well as some difference. And how do we facilitate city council's response to us in a cogent way if we're just, scattershot, or which is not to diminish, let's say, the significance of each individual ward's propositions, just that, to kind of get the city council thinking about priorities and about commonalities and helping them to deal with and respond to what we're giving them. I don't know whether that's
thank you.
compelling in any way, but that was my thinking.
Like, I certainly could imagine wards 1 and 8 having something to do with development MOUs with the university, for example, that we might share something common that no other ward cares about, or I think maybe they should, but they may not.
Yeah, good point. So Ward 6 I would imagine too.
One might think so. Sure. So would it be more than, are you thinking more than kind of keeping a consolidated list? You have have a table available that we all kind of contribute our suggestions to, so we can see where the overlaps are? Or are you thinking about a meeting like this where we might come, the steering committees would come with their lists and then talk through it and see whether there's modifications or adjustments?
Yeah, I like the idea of a meeting because sometimes the recognition of commonality or difference might not be immediately apparent. So, for me, these in-person meetings where we get together and kind of compare notes and have a discussion, if this is a useful idea, I'm just, to me, it seems like it might be, but I'm not sure that there would be agreement on this. But I would say have some kind of discussion. Sometimes the edges of an issue are not immediately apparent. They might bleed over into another part of the city. They might constrict into one ward or another. Maybe I'm overcomplicating this, a simpler, idea, but, or maybe a more primary idea. But I just wanted to, I thought I'd throw it out.
I guess to maybe expand the question a little bit, is this likely, or is this the question, a written report that gets handed to city council? Is it an actual face-to-face meeting with city council? Like, I guess how that information is delivered might alter how we present it.
And is it between the NPA and the city council, or the NPA and the councilors that are representing that
Good question.
ward or district?
Yeah, that's a good point. We could just convey our individual priorities to our council. And then it's lodged, it's.
Yeah. Well, what do we want? All good ideas. And I don't know what this, I guess what can come out of this is a proposal that we can agree upon at the next All Wards meeting. Should we have, wait a minute, we have 5 now, right? Does that count? You're 3. 3.
I think we do.
3. We do have 5.
2,
But
3.
I don't know if we warned it.
It seems like this is the essential issue here, right? I mean, this one thing seems like what we.
Kind of is. I was going to get down to making city councilors feel comfortable in meetings, which we make an effort in Ward 1. Other wards don't necessarily make the same effort we make, but it feels important.
Mhm.
And it's in here. So that's the only other, we don't have to talk about that now. That's less from a protocol standpoint. This is a much more important thing to get straight.
I have a question just in terms of, so when issues come up at city council, people might bring them up at Speak Out, which is not Speak Out, public, whatever. Like what counts as part of the process for giving input? Because people are bringing up, let's say they bring up the MOU, and it's not in a formal way, it's not a resolution, it's a comment that's made from the floor. I guess I'm asking, like, what level of participation, where in the process do we have input that's tangible and meaningful? Knowing that the discussion process and bringing stuff up happens over time and happens in side conversations, happens in committees. So you know what I'm saying? It's just, I don't know how complicated all of that is in terms of giving input and having an opportunity to, and maybe this is it. Maybe this is the way we give our input is March and April. We identify our 3 issues. And it's up to our city councilors to be sure to pay attention. I mean, that's what we're asking for.
I think it's something, it could be as simple as that. And I also think this doesn't have to work perfectly the first time, right? We try it, we do something, we figure out how to make it better, and then it evolves.
Yeah.
The point just being that, that if they were gonna develop Szymanska Park, there's only one ward that cares about that. But we want to make sure that one would imagine that every ward would want something that says, if you want to mess with parks in my ward, we should talk about it. You should bring it to the NPA. As another example, but that could be universal, but it would be specific to each ward. In the end, because we don't really have any authority or power, all it is good faith. That if, if these things are documented, if they're not documented, it's no use to say, well, you should have known.
Yeah.
You should have known this mattered to us. Why didn't you, why did you vote on this before you could talk about it? But if they're documented, then at least in good faith, one would expect that our city councilors would say, let's hold off our decision making for 2 weeks so that we can go to the NPA and talk about it, or something like that. So then how do we build this? The question is, what does this look like? Yeah, are we accumulating stuff that you might be able to turn into something, or?
Well, I can ask some of my other questions that this brought up for me. One of them is definitely the timeline. Like if it's called a standardized process, like what does it start with the fiscal year, for example, or does it start with the council calendar, like you mentioned? Or can we start in January and that be on your agendas in January and February? Talk about what might our board's priorities be for this year. I think the other thing that I will be mindful of is, to be honest, there's a lot of things that are without. There's a lot of big buckets of things. Like I can imagine many people care about housing, but that's not necessarily as effective if you go to the council that you have to care about. Maybe it's more like I just would be careful to be specific and tunable and have some kind of an ask for the city council. If it's like we want to hear about every housing development that is proposed or something like that. But just kind of narrowing the balance a little bit. And like you said, I think it's great that like we can try something this year and then if it's parts of that work, part of it don't work. But yeah, that's definitely for me thinking about like, who is going to be accountable for what parts. And I can certainly help with like tracking things and getting the right people to the right boards based on those existing priorities. But I wonder when it comes down to it, what is it? What are you asking city council to do on that priority? That's That was a lot of very good.
No, that's
helpful.
It's very helpful, yeah.
Well, I like the idea of us backtracking. Like if our goal is to deliver this in April, we need to be meeting with our NPAs well before that to determine what our list is.
I think it does make sense to start with our city councilors. As you say, it could evolve to something different. My suggestion would be that beginning with those two.
Well, and they're the ones that are most accountable to us.
Right.
Yeah, I don't feel like I see the need for it to be all of city council. Like, I think it can just be our counselors.
I'm assuming we made the right hiring decisions on town meeting day. They'll
Be receptive.
they'll bid our desires.
I kind of like the idea of this communication being shortly after the new council is seated, because then they know, that they're the ones we just elected, so they know. And we may only have elected one of our two, but at least it's if it's on an annual basis, we hit them all every.
And that's when committees are reconstituted and taking shape and setting their agendas and mindsets and plans.
Give them a roadmap.
So from a
think that makes
start time point. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, but just for clarification, if we if we go to start with our city councilor, our own councilor for each ward, for our ward, I wonder how that's different from business that's currently conducted. In other words, our councilors already presumably know some of our priorities. They live in the ward. They come to our meetings. They then go to council and they're one voice among all the councilors. And that voice may or may not be heard, may or may not get any traction. So if we leave it to the individual councilors, I don't see how that's any different from current procedure. Where whereas if we somehow collectively have a more collective voice, and I'm not sure where I'm going with this or what it might mean, but I think that
You just think it should be different than, I mean, because we're using because it's made it in the resolution, you're expecting something to change from current practice?
I'm not sure that, each of our city councilors is already operating with a list of priorities and working politically within the framework of the council.
Right, but if I can just jump in for a second, those priorities are their perception of their constituents' priorities. From knocking doors, from reading emails, from getting, whatever it is. Here it's our perception of saying, well, we've all come together as a group in the NPA, and here are the things that collectively we're telling you.
And it's just more
I think it's a little bit, yeah. I think it's a little bit different.
documenting it, yeah.
You think
It's similar, but different.
There's some steps, as Barbara pointed out. What are our expectations of our city councilors? They hear us, they understand it because they live in the ward. But some of what Jonathan mentioned too was to have that city councilor at a city council meeting say, this is a real key issue for my ward. I need to go back to my ward and talk it over. We may have a presentation we want to make to the whole city council around this issue because it's really a pretty key. I mean, and that because the people who are in the shadows here are the city councilors. This resolution applies to them as well. They know this is operational. They know this is something that we're working on, and they've said they think it's important.
They passed it.
They passed it. So I would assume that they're also aware that we're trying to come up with a process that they need to participate in as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I will say, when I lived in a different ward, not the ward I'm representing tonight, want to make that clear. One of our city councilors, there was a significant disagreement between members of the steering committee and the city councilor. And so then that city councilor did not show up to meetings for months and months and months. And this could potentially resolve some of that, I feel like.
And I also think that if we start with our city councilors, that doesn't mean that there couldn't be one list that goes in a consent agenda at some point. This represents the accumulated list of all the wards, all the NPAs of interest, so that all city councilors could see this. But so there's that shared aspect.
Yeah, I think that's a key. I think that's a key. I think it sort of clarifies my question. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not exclusive. I mean, it would be nice for everybody to understand that it is, it's a Ward A priority. Everybody should know that this is a Ward A priority. Everybody should know that. Not necessarily that they're going to act on it, but at least when the Ward A city councilor says, slow down, everybody goes, oh, this is why. Mm-hmm. So that's, how many of the questions has that answered?
Yeah, one more thought here, which is, I think we're talking a lot about the institutional aspect of consulting. I think there could also be space for thinking your priority about budget decisions or about advocacy for things that are the full NPA review. I think priorities could be quite broad if you want them to be. So I'll put that out there. And again, that goes along with the my feeling that there should be some kind of math associated with each priority. Just to increase, just to be specific and have an element of accountability.
Question. So the NPAs are going to present to the council that the issues that their ward has found most important or pressing as pressing matters, to bring it to the council. And I'm not sure if these are separate presentations. I mean, the ward, do we do all the wards for the council, or are they different presentations at different times?
I guess I would imagine, and this is just the way I perceive it, is there's a conversation between the NPA. So the NPAs set some priorities. Each NPA sets their priorities. There may be a conversation with their city councilors, and then there's a piece of paper. And the only thing that goes to city council is that piece of paper. And it's probably not even talked about unless the city council wants to hear more. Somebody would just go on a consent agenda or something, but it would be formally logged with the city. This is my perception of it. And it wouldn't be that each NPA or even collectively the NPA necessarily has to come and present this list. It would all depend on what the city council wants, I think. At that point, it's their choice, I would think. Does that make sense?
I think it's also good. It's whether, you do want to bring representation of people to the council, really make an impact. Also.
And that would be if we actually got time on an agenda. That's not 2 minutes at the beginning. That would be a 15-minute, 10-minute block or something where we explain it. We could do that. So I'm wondering whether at this stage, we've kind of talked this through. Is it something that everybody can bring back to their NPAs? But we think about as NPAs meeting in, the first meeting after reorganization or something like that to talk about this with their NPAs. And then maybe there's an all wards meeting in late March or early April where we kind of do the compare and contrast. And then this gets presented in some way, in some format to city council after that in April sometime. Is that something we might be able to work through, have happen?
I have no idea if the city council has a fixed time that they address certain issues like, Memorial Auditorium has been, it's like Halley's Comet. It circles around. All of a sudden it reappears as an issue and then it disappears again. But the last time I heard it spoken of was when the last mayor was here.
I think it's going to be on Monday's agenda. I think it might be on the December 15th agenda.
Good. That's good because somebody should handle it who's not a developer.
So does that sound okay? Can we,
We're going back to our own NPAs to talk about starting on organization. And I think, Amy, you're pointing out, you had those conversations January, February, so that we're ready after organization day to make those recommendations to our city councilor, and then perhaps have an all wards meeting where we compile all of those together. Okay, that's what we're bringing back to our NPAs.
yeah, that sounds good.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, great, thank you. And then just a reminder at the end that city council should be encouraged to regularly attend NPA meetings in their respective ward. It's in there. We just have to see if we can do it.
And this might be a question for another time, but do you all have your city councilors speak at every single meeting,
We do
every single time?
Yes,
every single time.
not necessarily forward to.
Okay.
We have a regular slot on the agenda for city council.
How much time do you give them?
I think 15 minutes or something, yeah. Yeah, that raises an issue that's maybe irrelevant, but I'm wondering about city council caps their public comments at 2 minutes, right? They limit comments to 2 minutes. And do you all limit comments, or do you have an open, just however long someone wants to speak?
So like Ward 2, for example, does not necessarily include a separate agenda item for city councilors to talk. If a city councilor has a topic they want to discuss during public forum for the 2 minutes, then okay.
Mhm. And what about public comments, like somebody, the neighbor attending? a
During
meeting?
public forum,
Yeah, during public.
and they're cut
forum.
off at 2 minutes. I mean, you give you a yellow warning. and
You
then
do
red.
limit it,
Yeah.
2 minutes.
See, in Ward one, we don't, and I think I'm speaking for Ward one. City council and school board meetings have that limitation. There's that bloody red light. You have 2 minutes to say your piece, and there's no conversation between you and the people sitting where we're sitting.
Mhm.
There's no exchange. And apparently that's the protocol, that's not the role. But I feel like the NPAs, that's where that happens.
It's
And that's why it's concerning to me that city councilors aren't feeling necessarily welcome or even have a slot. I guess I have some concern about that. Because I think that's a pretty key part of the mission. Is that we have that exchange back and forth between our city councilors and our school board members and our residents of our ward. And putting a time, I mean, we've talked about that, but we've ended up instead putting up some guidelines and just say, please be mindful, please, and we hope we help the facilitator try to keep that limited, and a new person speaks before anybody else who's already spoken, try to do some of that. But I think we're in a pretty unique position, and we need to respect that, I think, because it doesn't exist anywhere else. And I'm sorry, Jason isn't here really to talk about the civic piece, because that's the civic piece for me, is we're providing something that nobody else can or does. And it's important,
Yep.
particularly now.
Okay.
So anyway, it's my piece, my rant.
That's helpful.
Let's talk a little bit about resolutions to present to all NPAs. And, well, please. Yeah.
There's also the problem about city staff that are reviewing competing materials. I think they know that. To that point, I have been working on this student city handbook, which was last updated in 2018. So that is something that if anybody would like to help me review, I would love, like 2 or 3 folks have been on the steering committee and would like to check my work. So please just let me know if you would be done with that. It's about 20 pages right now, but half of it is appendices on the living law and that kind of thing. So it's not as big as it looks.
That's great. Thank you for doing that.
No. Could I also ask about the last bullet in that same section?
Yeah, I think
Include a representative chosen by the NPAs to serve on hiring committees for staff roles, predominantly focused on supporting and liaising with the NPAs. I mean, we've spoken up about that. I know it's a key issue for Charlie, who's certainly brought it up a number of times. So, I don't know what we do with that. It's in there. It's something that was passed by the whole city council. They passed this whole resolution with all this wording, right? So it's just, how does that get implemented? Barbara's never gonna leave, but in case. Right.
well, I mean, it could be something like the CDBG where it's whoever, if it's on a volunteer basis, or it could be elected, so yeah, definitely a process that could figure out.
Yeah, when we did this resolution, we asked for volunteers. Basically a volunteer from each ward if they wanted to, and then it was literally drawing names out of a hat. So I think it can be as simple as that. It feels a little uncomfortable to decide, for people to interview for the job or something. But it seems like we want Rob's looking at me like I'm crazy.
Well, no, we all know that.
Always looks like.
Right. No, I'm curious, is this a representative from each NPA? So
No.
8 or so?
It's one person.
So how would, what's the mechanics of that?
Yeah.
I think that's.
So I was, when we did the resolution, the mechanics was literally pick a number from 1 to 10, and whoever gets the number gets. From among candidates expressed interest, 1 from each ward. And we literally got 4 names for 3 positions. I mean, that was what it was. And so it was, 1 person out, and it was random. Should we think about how it should be now, or should we wait till the last minute?
Well, it sounds like what I just heard from you is each NPA figures out how to put up to 1 candidate forward, and then however many candidates there are, go in a hat and somebody pulls a random number.
That's a process. That doesn't have to be the process. That was just what we used last time. And that wasn't documented. We have no bylaws. We don't, we got nothing. So maybe it's something to bring up at the next meeting.
Just what that process would be specifically. Yeah.
Whether we want to vet people or whether we want to just make a random selection from presumably from steering committee members, but it doesn't have to be, right? It could be anybody. Okay. So we talked a little bit about resolutions to present to all NPAs, or across all NPAs. I've included one as an example, and after listening to Emmett, I'm not sure we can do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
But we did put it. It's in the agenda and it's posted on Front Porch Forum, but it wasn't warned as a vote. So maybe we can't vote on it tomorrow. But Ward 1 has written a letter that would presumably go to educational leadership across the state about the Vermont School Redistricting Task Force and their report. And it's a letter that endorses the content of the report. And it would go to, we kind of tentatively said it would go to city council, it would go to our school commission, it would go to the state school commissioner, it would go to the governor, it would go to Senator Baruth and to Representative Krowinski as the leaders of the General Assembly, the Senate, and maybe even other people. But it was going to be broadly, the whole point was to amplify individual voices about how we feel about what's going on with education. It's not a Ward 1 issue, but it would go out as it stands right now, it would go out as a letter from the Ward 1 NPA. But it seems like there's stuff that we all care about that could be, but from all the NPAs, it could be citywide. And so the question would be, is there interest in that? And if so, what would be, can we think about what might be a reasonable procedure for this? And, should we kind of hold these somewhere? Should they all be stored someplace? So that, if this open letter that I think you all have in front of you would be available to everybody in all the wards. And then each ward could decide whether they want to sign on to it or something, or we get together as in all wards and decide whether we do it collectively. But it's got to be, because these things have kind of shelf lives, this has to we'd have to have a process kind of in real time if we wanted it to, to share this sort of thing. And it would be kind of, in my mind, it would be kind of important that everybody hears the stuff that matters most to everybody like this. Especially if it's kind of citywide kind of stuff. I know there's some bus stuff. There was some number 11 bus stuff that went around. And it feels like that might be local, but it also might be citywide. It might be something that we'd all want to sign on. But we need to know what it is, and we need to understand it to bring it to our NPAs so that we could have a larger collective action. I firmly believe that NPAs actually matter, and that if we speak with a loud enough voice or a strong enough voice, we can actually affect change. But I think every time we go from one person writing a letter to an NPA writing a letter to all the NPAs writing a letter, we're exponentially building that voice, and we're exponentially getting closer and closer to actually making a difference. So I'm just wondering how other people feel about that, and whether they think there might be a way that we could, if we want to do this, is there kind of a formal, more formalized structure that we might want to try out, or just at least create a repository that we could put these in. So it's like, hey, hey, we're doing this. You want to do it too? So we all know. I'll stop talking.
I've done. Thank you. Yes, and yes to everything you said. But I've only been on the steering committee since September, so I feel very new at all of this. Can you give me a brief rundown of how you came up with the wording for that, presented it to the NPA, voted on it, came up with a final version? I'm just like, how did you do that?
This letter? Well, I can tell you what we were going to do, but we're not.
Okay.
So at our last meeting, we generally talked about trying to.
NPA meeting, not the steering committee.
I'm sorry, at the last NPA meeting, yes, at the last NPA meeting, we had an extended conversation with Martine about what the.
Martine Zulik, who is on the task.
Sorry,
force.
this is co-chair.
Co-chair.
Co-chair of the task force.
Along with our two board commissioners, school board commissioners. So those three people spoke to the work of the task force.
Thank you.
Right. And so there was information with a lot of discussion, and we ended the meeting with maybe we need to, maybe we collectively as a group could write a letter. And then I got together with the commissioners
Yes. Yeah.
And we wrote this letter. And then we did post it with the agenda, and it's actually on Front Porch Forum as well. But as I say, we weren't it. So we have to decide whether we can in clear conscience say we met open meeting.
But had you worded it?
I'm sorry, what we would do is we would, tomorrow at our meeting, we would hand out copies of this to everybody. And we would ask if the NPA would endorse this letter to be sent to these people. And if the NPA said yes, but with modifications, then we'd modify. If the NPA said, no, then it just doesn't happen. If the NPA says yes, then then somehow the steering committee would actually get this letter in a way that we could send to all those groups that we want to send it to. And that would be it.
It's very helpful.
But it is, so we don't have, unlike other bylaws, Ward 1 doesn't have you gotta bring something to you, like 2 readings. We don't have 2 readings in our bylaw. We don't, so we can, in theory, if it was willing, we could bring this to a meeting without ever showing it to anybody and have a vote on it. That may not be great practice, but that's the way.
But the warning piece isn't in our bylaws, it's in the open meeting law.
The warning piece is in the open meeting law.
Right.
We
Hear it differently.
Right, that's right. But we could bring, if willing, we could just bring this tomorrow without ever showing it to anybody and talk about it at the meeting.
Okay.
That's not great practice, but.
Very helpful. Thank you.
So what do people think? Is there, is this something we should think about, figure out a way to do?
Figure out a what?
Well, I guess what I was wondering is, should we think as in all wards of a way that we might be able to share these, they might be resolutions to city council, they might be letters to officials that just are the collective body that might have a larger voice if more people signed on to it. Rather than something specifically for our city council or something, but if there was a way that we could share before, if there was a way that we could share this sort of thing across so that we might be able to increase the number of people who actually want to be part of the conversation.
I mean, are you saying something more formal than just an email? Like, could could someone from the steering committee of Ward 1 have just sent out an email to all of us saying, hey, just a heads up?
Yes.
About at our last.
Done that.
And at the last Wards meeting, Ward 5 brought a couple things that they were thinking about for full discussion among all the wards. But presumably the outcome of that was that how the all wards voted was whether to go forward with it. But it could just be an email, hey, we're doing this. But it also feels like, I mean, as with the bus thing, the number 11 bus thing, I think I would probably focus more on it if it was, it was more formalized than just a note. Because the note says the note is just a little informal, and it's not necessarily, unless it's it's well structured, it's harder to bring to an NPA meeting and say, guys, folks over in Ward X are thinking about this. Do you want to think about it too? If it's like this, and maybe it's in a folder somewhere, you'd say, these are, since last month, these are what the other wards are seriously thinking. Are any of these germane to us? And should we sign on somehow too?
By folder, you mean like a Google Drive?
Yeah. And it's the metaphorical folder.
Not a real folder.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Although there's paper. So this is kind of a question is whether we want to figure something out, whether we want to figure something out today, whether we want to figure something out before the next all wards meeting, or just kind of drop it.
I don't necessarily think it should be dropped. I don't know if I feel strongly one way or the other, whether it needs to be like super finalized tonight or if it can be an ongoing discussion, but.
Okay.
I think there's some issues that could be really powerful. Even though I'm new on the steering committee, I've gone to Ward 4 and 7 NPA meetings for quite a while. I'm not sure we haven't done any resolutions in the near past. So the whole concept feels new.
Yeah.
For me, and again, I might be biased, but uninformed. But I love the idea and theory. Like, I think we could make a huge difference on some issues if every NPA agreed on something. So I support the idea. I don't feel like we're ready in Ward 4 and 7.
Yeah.
So is this a way of, I'm just wondering, is it a way of affecting some sort of political process? Or is it a way of enhancing the participation of the NPAs in the public process? Like, what is our goal in doing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's a way of amplifying voices, but part of the whole thing in our previous agenda item was all about, city, take the NPAs a little more seriously. We have a lot to offer. We can make this a better city. We can help you make this a better city. So in a way, it's both, I think, because if the NPAs are, as the NPAs are more and more validated, more and more people are going to think of the NPAs as valid, and more people are going to want to get engaged in the NPAs. So it is a building process. It's a group building process as well as an advocacy. I think you can get both out of it. I don't mean to be political in saying that we're trying to build up our numbers by doing this, but I think it's a natural consequence of enhancing the voice. Suddenly people say, oh, maybe I could get the NPA to be engaged in this. And if the NPA is engaged in this, I may be able to get it done. And that's really what we're here for, I think, is to help people, help the community's voice be heard by our elected officials. That was Bernie's deal. It was exactly Bernie's deal.
I know that the board for the NPA passed a number of resolutions in the past couple of months. And I noticed, and I don't know what the process was, if it was sent out, how it was sent out to the media, but there was some media coverage about specifically a Ward 3 NPA resolution that had been passed. So there's also an opportunity, yes, definitely sent to elected officials, but also to the media, and especially if you have more buy-in from more wards. That's just like Mr. Jonathan, maybe fine.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess I remember that too. It kind of got out.
The former mayor and the group that held us in sway for years, they made a big a pretense of getting a lot of public input on anything. We had meetings, we had whiteboards, white pages and pages, and give everybody stickers. And it really looked like somebody was supposed to be correlating what everybody wanted and responding to that. And yet, the mayor and his close friends made all the decisions, and they decided just when to disregard. No matter how popular an idea was, they could disregard it and it would be okay. No matter what you said at a public forum, the response was the same. They would say, next.
Thank you.
And that was the last you would hear of your suggestions.
So that reminds me of an example, which was the redistricting committee, the ad hoc redistricting committee, which many of you may or may not remember, but it came up with two recommendations, and both of them were ignored, were soundly ignored by the redistricting process. But as NPAs, none of us came to an NPA meeting, to a city council meeting and say, read the thing. Mm-hmm. If all the NPAs as a group had come to city council and said, this is what the people have said, heed what the people said, things might be different. Yeah. So that's exactly it. I mean, you can put as many little dots on paper as you want. I think we need to do a little bit more formal advocacy, a little bit more active advocacy. So I'm wondering, I don't need to yak about this anymore. I'm just wondering whether, Barbara, is there a way to, is there something maybe on Civic Clerk where these things could just be thrown in a folder somewhere or just collected?
I'll look into Civic Clerk. There also is a shared NPA Google Drive that I think we most people have access to. But I can look at some of the options for how this would be disseminated and then how to track people want to take it up or right?
Yeah, and I think that if you've got something open rather than the Google groups or the Drive, so that everybody can look at them, because it's entirely possible if this may not happen, but it's entirely possible that a non-steering committee member might be browsing. I can imagine Sharon reading it, for example, and saying, "Oh, we should be doing this too," and bringing it to the NPA. So if there is anything like that, it feels like in the whole infrastructure, the ecosystem there should be some way in Civic Clerk, at least something that could be open.
And I guess I just would urge all of us to really be thinking about Jason's issue, even though he's not here. Because what do we want from our NPAs? And that we actually have more power. This resolution has really enabled us, particularly because the city council voted unanimously for the resolution, right? So they say, yeah, we want it too. So I think it's really, really important as a steering committee that all of us have these sort of pretty active conversations about what what can we do to advocate for our neighborhood, to advocate for these three issues that we're really concerned about? How can we publish that so that other NPAs can be part of that conversation? So that it's not an individual speaking for 2 minutes in front of city council. You know, it's the NPAs. And that's what our hope was with the letter to, you know, about the task force, was that if all, you know, if our NPA at least is saying it, it's not just one person that's saying it. They probably will ignore it anyway, but you know, we've said our piece. And we continue to say our piece. And I think we just need to feel our strength, you guys. We do. We need to feel who we are and what we're able to do and the power we've been given. Yes, we're advisory. Yes, we don't have squat. I mean, we don't, right? We don't make decisions that are going to have long range implications, but we have people who come to our meetings and really have something to say and want to be part of changing and helping Burlington.
Yes. Many people just feel like nothing they say or do will matter. And then, you know, the 20-year-olds feel like everything is on the line and, you know, they haven't been disappointed at anything yet. And so they're really, really happy and they're marching and then they're all dejected and they're like, giving up, thinking about giving up. You know, we need more perspective. And of course, the internet separates people into ages and groups and directions. And to be a community, you have to bring it together. You have to bring them together. And people have stopped, because there's a lot of money in it, they've stopped thinking of themselves as a community. And people just say, I want to get more of that. I never want to see that again. And we need to work as a unit, work as a city, things are getting a little better, but there will always be the battle of the internet. I mean, they want everybody on the phone. They want everybody on the screen. Google, Apple, Microsoft, they want to know you to the extent where they know what to sell you. If they can sell everybody the same thing, they make a lot of money. And so they really are. I heard yesterday that Apple was actually the worst culprit in gathering information, which surprised me. I thought it would be Google and Microsoft. But at any rate, as someone told me, oh, he's a Chinese guy. What are you going to believe anything he says? But things are not so simple. He was making sense. And the community, looking people in the eye, talking to each other, you know, it's not like types. You know, we're not looking at a bunch of Russians with fur hats and a bunch of Hawaiians in Hawaiian shirts and a bunch of farmers in overalls. And it's just not like that. You know, people are people and we're all together and we sort of rise or fall together. And of course, we're in a position where hopefully we're about to get rid of some repressive forces. They've been thriving, and I look forward to them winning. Okay.
You know, if I could ask, I love the idea of this. I love this resolution. I like the idea of taking it to the next step, putting it on the agenda for discussion at our next meeting, and maybe inviting our school board rep to come and facilitate a discussion. So do you see that as a viable next step? I mean, did I miss something? Is that something you're suggesting we do? having brought it here to this meeting and circulated it?
Yeah, I mean, of course, because, it's our work product, but the real reason to bring this is just a sample of what we could be doing as a group. It's, it was largely a sample, but of course, I love it if this was shared and it actually had legs of some sort or something like it.
Mhm.
When the report came out, like within 4 hours, Commissioner Saunders said, "Oh, this is wrong," and the governor said, "This is wrong. This is what we asked for. You failed." I mean, that was the language, and the reality is, they didn't fail. They actually responsibly offered direction that might make sense for the state. So it just felt, at our last NPA meeting, our last Ward 1 meeting, it felt like we needed to at least support the work that they did. This is going to go back, so they're going to open up the doors in Montpelier in January, and Senator Baruth and Representative Kerwinski are going to do something. And because they can just, the legislature can just ignore this, the governor can just ignore this, they can do whatever they want to do according to Act 73, right? So it might be, it's nice to provide some kind of, support the group and say, no, if you ignore it at your own risk, we think that there's something here. The bigger the voice that says that, the better.
Well, and I feel like we read in the Vermont media, Scott sort of interprets what different votes mean. This is how Vermonters stand. This is what Vermonters think. I disagree with his conclusions, but I feel like a group of people in the city voting on this is saying, putting our names to it, this is important. We want you to pay attention. We're not a single person. We're not a single group or, a representative group from the city. We're pretty concerned about this, and you need to listen to our feedback to you. Because it's not, and that's why I just feel like we need to feel our oats. It's an opportunity. We've got officials saying that's not what Vermonters think, and I disagree. It's not, that is, yeah. So I just think we need to be able to speak up and say, this is what I think as a Vermonter.
Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
So next meeting, do we want to set another meeting?
Next steps. So, coming down here, Rob and I talked about rotations. And we don't have to vote on anything, but maybe the idea would be that every ward takes a meeting. We meet quarterly or however often we want to, but we just kind of pass it on. And one ward organizes this one, the next ward organizes the next one, and so forth. Is that something that people might be amenable to? Because, and I say this because I should just back up, is that for quite a while, Carol organized all these back in the day. And it's hard and it's extra and it's a lot. And if you don't have buy-in from everybody, it starts to be challenging. But if we all kind of shared the responsibility of doing these meetings, and Ward 5 did it last time, and I think Ward 3 might have done it the time before that, maybe some other ward could just tonight say, yeah, we'll do the next one. And, roughly like every quarter or something.
And Barbara was key, right? I mean, Barbara's role was key in helping organize this.
Well, absolutely. It was your suggestion.
Right. So it's like,
So
you're
yeah,
not,
thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you.
you're not alone in organizing this. I mean,
Yeah.
Barbara's got, a lot of energy to do it and a lot of know-how and, but she's not the NPA. We're the NPA.
It's our meeting.
Yeah.
So I got a question about this meeting. So we're kind of a non-governmental meta group of organizations. Do we have to warn it?
I think the city would say yes.
And they would vote on anything tonight if it wasn't warned in the agenda.
No, we can't. The city would say no. We can do whatever we want and take our chances.
Going back to the beach.
What would they have no to?
Pardon?
What would they say no to?
Are actually doing anything substantive at this meeting
Voting on
Without
everything.
warning.
without warning him.
I just question whether this meeting even falls in the purview of open meeting law based on.
Forum, like we, is this the forum of forum one at least? I mean, I think that's where it is a certain number of steering committee members from each board talking about NPA. No matter what way.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That's a great question for Annette, because I don't think that this body is.
It's not recognized, right?
In any way.
We made it up.
Right, and it's not like it has membership beyond folks from each steering committee. It's not like anybody's a member of the board. Which brings to a conversation that we've had in the past, which is does the All Wards need a set of bylaws? And at the, that's always the point where everybody says, well, I'm not working on it. So let's ask the simpler question. Is there any other ward that might like to organize the next meeting? Work with Barbara to organize the next meeting.
I can speak for Ward 4 and 7. We're not ready, but I'll pre-promise the next time that we'll do it.
Okay.
The all wards meeting after the next one.
Yes.
6 of the soup over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that mean only Ward 2 is left? If we said 3,
The cheese stands alone.
1 already.
Well, I think 5 did last time. I think Chris did the one before then.
So that's 3 and you guys are 1 tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how my fellow steering committee members will feel, but I guess I can nominate Ward 2.
Thank you. It's not
You rock.
a huge lift.
It doesn't feel like too big of a pull to me, but hopefully that doesn't draw any votes.
Thank you. Right.
So generally next quarter, like we're thinking, what is it, December?
So it might be in April if
Yeah, maybe.
we all do our resolutions.
Maybe we can plan.
Yeah.
That's a
It's
part of
that-
what the agenda could be, is
Yeah.
we bring our resolution, our items for the city councilors.
Yeah.
Yeah, good timing coincidentally, I guess.
So April,
So relating to that a little bit, just a lot of great topics discussed tonight. Could we just summarize next steps for my brain? Like, what do I need to bring to my fellow steering committee members? Anything at all?
You're very good. It's like, me, it's like, yeah, it's over. So, well,
See, we want.
no, I mean,
Light up.
we talked about open meeting law. We talked about,
is going to post that slideshow on,
Civic clerk.
I don't have minutes.
Honestly, fair.
yeah, actually, the minutes
Go
are
with
probably
the minutes.
better along with you right now, so. It's,
We were more asking, what do you need to do walking out of here? What do you need to do? Not what did we accomplish tonight? What do you need to do walking out of here to?
It is true,
All rolling
but
for
like, you know, there's
meeting.
limits too.
well, I think there's a conversation about how you're gonna go collect your priorities.
Okay,
There's reviewing, you could make sure that all steering committee members read the open meeting law stuff. You could talk to your steering committee about global resolutions. Shared resolutions. And
those 3 things.
I think that's pretty much it.
Okay,
Thinking about ways of building civic culture, which we didn't really talk about,
Which we didn't get to tonight, which would be great for the next agenda.
It'd be great to do that next time.
Yeah.
I'll start with.
Eric,
Just-
borrow your pen.
So just make sure Jason is not busy the night before the next meeting.
Okay, ready? We're gonna say. Big star.
because it really comes out of that list of our list of 3. It's like, okay, what do we do with this list of 3? What are some, and that can be part of that civic engagement that we have as a whole
Yep.
group. And
I-
that could be the whole conversation. Julie, so. I'm in it.
Just a question is, you remember how there was a big push the other side of the Great Streets project? It was said that we were now going to reconnect St. Paul Street and reconnect Pine Street. It hasn't been spoken of in 5 years or so. Does anybody actually believe that Pine Street is going to continue through the gigantic building that blocks its end at Bank Street? Does somebody really think that we are connecting Pine Street again? Because it seemed impossible to begin with, and they just, oh, we'll find a way.
Yeah, it's part of the plan. It's actually like the TIF money's all going to that.
It's right.
It's part of the plan. It's in the plan, but it's got to be done after everything else, I think. But it is definitely in the plan. Pine Street is definitely going to go through, and North Shore Plan is going to go all the way to the end of the road, right?
Yeah, I thought Champlain was.
To Pearl Street.
You probably have the answer.
Not to that. I had
Okay.
another comment that I wanted to make.
Yeah, it's definitely in the works. That would be a wonderful thing. You could get, as a Freeman French, you could get whoever it is, who's doing the work to come and talk at an NPA meeting.
Your city councilors should know the answer to
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah. Other term.
Okay, so for next steps, since I think that's where we are on the agenda, way down here at next step.
We are.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that, between 2010 and 2020, that's when the NPAs were the most influential in the city. Okay, and then the COVID thing happened and everything pretty much collapsed. But anyways, one of the things that was happening back there is you had regular all ward meetings and people like Jenny Davis, and Keisha Rand would have those meetings every 3 or 4 months. And in fact, they used to actually attend some of the steering committee meetings. And so part of what it came out of that was that the NPAs were much more cooperative, which made them much more influential. For instance, at least once a year for several years in a row, what they would do is the NPAs would sponsor something, some big event. For instance, in this very room, all the NPAs sponsored a conversation about Burlington Telecom. That was one. And like the place was packed. Another one was what to do about parks in Burlington. Then there was another one about something that had to do with the Public Works Department. But when the NPAs would band together, the city council would take it more seriously than the city council just seeing, oh, here's 5 or 10 people in one of the wards with a resolution out of 5,000 people or out of 10,000 people. So they don't really, if you were on the city council, would you really take that seriously? You see, so I'm a big advocate for the steering committees working as closely together as possible. And one idea I have is like every September or October, have an automatic NPA all wards meeting to talk about what we want to do. And then you might follow that up in January and again in May or like, but I'm just trying to tell you that the NPAs were very influential between like 2010 and 20 because the person in Barbara's position was very active with the NPA steering committees and organized these events that the NPAs together sponsored, you see, and they brought in, 100, 200 people into this very room to talk about something. So I just thought I'd mention that.
That's helpful.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
anything else.
With that, can we make a motion to adjourn, or is that, we have it on the agenda? Let's say we're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Not just a recess?
Thank you.
Well, we're recessing until the